Palantir and Nvidia stocks have been the hottest AI stocks in 2024. Both of their performance has been incredible, to be sure. But which one is the better AI stock to buy today for long-term investors? That's the question I'm going to answer in this video, comparing these two AI stocks on revenue growth, on profit margin, on cash flow from operations, on valuation, and considering the company's 5-year forecast or several years ahead forecast on earnings per share to determine which one I think is the better stock to buy today. So let's take a look at the details.
I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/parkev for the 10 best stocks to buy now.
Let's start with revenue growth, and what we'll notice is Nvidia's separation from Palantir in recent quarters, separating itself, revenue growth of 93% in the latest quarter compared to 30% for Palantir. In fact, Nvidia had several consecutive quarters where its revenue growth exceeded 200%. And this is even though Nvidia is a much larger company than Palantir, and revenue growth is more difficult for a larger company because there is less room for upside if you're already generating $20 billion in revenue. Despite those constraints, Nvidia has managed excellent revenue growth, and I suspect this will continue for several quarters more before Nvidia saturates the market it's penetrating right now, the data centers optimized for artificial intelligence. Palantir, meanwhile, is accelerating revenue growth. It's making great progress in penetrating the enterprise market. It had long found great success with governments, especially domestic governments, but it's now making its services more broadly available to enterprises, which is opening up a bigger market for Palantir, and I suspect their revenue growth will continue robustly over several years as well. The next thing I wanted to compare these two on is their operating profit margin. Again, you'll notice Nvidia with an advantage here at 62.71% of operating profit margin. This is among the best of any of the companies that I follow. Off the top of my head, I think only Visa surpasses Nvidia in operating profit margin of all the companies you've seen me follow. Palantir, meanwhile, is way behind at 13.8%. but it's improving at a more quicker rate than Nvidia. You'll see the trend line of its operating profit margin rising from negative 120% in 2021 all the way up to 13.8% here in the latest update. Palantir forecasting profits will continue expanding as it's done an excellent job controlling costs while revenues are increasing. Nvidia also forecasting continued increases in profitability as the company is introducing the latest generation Blackwell technology. The initial ramp up will bring down gross profit margins slightly, but management forecasting that gross profit margins will rise again in the back half of the year. Remember, Nvidia saying that its technology is sold out for at least the next few quarters, and when you have supply that's not enough to meet demand, it allows you to generate premium prices, which creates higher and higher profit margins. And that's what you're seeing from Nvidia. And that's what Nvidia is forecasting for at least the next few quarters. The next metric to look at is the return on invested capital. And this measures how good a company is at taking investors' money, investing it in research and development to create products and services that customers will buy. And the skill in this is one of the most critical skills investors would like to see from a company. This is a core competency. This is what you're in business for, right? To take money, turn it into products and services, sell those products and services at a profit. Nvidia has done an excellent job in this, 107% in this metric compared to just 12% for Palantir. But again, Palantir's pace of improvement is excellent, growing from negative 400% in 2021 all the way up to 12.27%. And I wouldn't be surprised if Palantir continues to improve this metric. I suspect the gap to narrow over the next 5 years in this metric especially. Looking ahead, what I have on the chart here is earnings per share growth estimates over the next 5 years. So in 2024, Nvidia's earnings per share is expected to increase by 585% compared to 150% for Palantir, both excellent growth rates. But this gap is going to narrow over the next few years. In 2025, they're both going to deliver a little over 140% earnings per share growth, as expected by Wall Street analysts that are forecasting these numbers for Palantir and Nvidia. In 2026, Nvidia's earnings per share is expected to decelerate to 45% increase, where Palantir expected to decelerate to 25%. And then further decelerations here for Nvidia going down to 24, then 20, and then negative 4.8% earnings per share growth for Nvidia in 2029. Whereas in that year, Palantir is still expected to increase its earnings per share by 27%. So over the next several years, the earnings per share is expected to decelerate for Nvidia. That's to be expected. The company can't continue increasing earnings per share at the near 600% rate. It will in 2024, but the slowdown is something that happens to all businesses that grow in a rapid rate in the near term. They slow down to more realistic terms in the long run. Now that we've looked at all of the company's critical metrics, let's compare the valuation. And I chose to use the forward price to earnings ratio. And according to this metric, Palantir is more than 4 times as expensive as Nvidia. It's trading at a forward price to earnings of 135 compared to Nvidia, which is trading at a forward price to earnings of 32.5. Now, out of all the metrics we looked at, we didn't see a clear, distinct advantage for Palantir in any of those categories. Nvidia had a better ROIC, better operating profit margin, better revenue growth. Earnings per share was mixed. You can argue that Palantir has better earnings per share prospects over the next 5 years compared to Nvidia over the next 5 years. But that was really the only metric where you could even argue that Palantir had an advantage. So given all of these prospects, given the valuation, I don't feel Palantir deserves this much of a premium over Nvidia stock. So if I was looking for an AI stock to buy today and I was a long-term investor, I would choose Nvidia stock over Palantir stock. Of course, this is for informational purposes only. Please conduct your own due diligence before making a purchase. I have dozens and dozens of videos on each of these two companies. So if you're curious and you want to learn more, please subscribe and check out those videos. Hey everyone, so many of you have been asking about my investing strategy, and I'm excited to announce that I've written a book that's available for sale now that describes my 6-step investing framework for evaluating stocks. I've added the link in the description below.